Okay, thanks everybody for joining me today. We're holding one of our weekly webinar trainings. As you're aware, for those that attended before, these are short, 30 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, depends on how many questions we get. Right now, we're starting the first in a series on Facebook advertising. So we're going to start out with relatively simple topics, basic things today. As usual, this will be recorded and put in the members archive. It will also be posted on the YouTube channel, and I'll show you the link to that at the end of the webinar. And so it's part one of four. So as we go through this, we'll get more and more advanced. So for those of you that have done some Facebook advertising, you may find parts of this remedial. So advertising on Facebook, for the most part, starts with building a fan page, right? So you'll have to have a page of some sort, even if you're going to advertise externally, which means you're going to put up an ad that goes to a website. It's still a good idea to have a fan page. I'll give you some insider tips, some kind of hacks, so to speak, that you can do probably when we get to part 3 of this series, and reasons why you'll want to create multiple fan pages and how you can use those for various things to help you convert more leads and sales. You'll want to have some branding or graphics, right? So you have to have the Facebook header, the profile image, and things like that. And then, you can do the classic thing where you post stuff to the page, or you can use it purely for um, advertising. So, a lot of the pages that I create these days are only used for the purposes of advertising, which we'll talk about. We're going to create ads typically for your pages. A lot of people like to promote their pages directly, so get likes. You can promote apps and you can promote events. There are downsides to all of those things. My belief is that you should be always promoting an external website. There are a couple things that I have yet to test that I will at some point, that you've probably seen other people do, where they kind of send you through an app, a squeeze page that's on Facebook, but then also get you to connect to an external website at the same time. For the most part, I've had minimal luck with that, but that just might be the markets that I'm operating in. But the bottom line is, you really need to just figure out what your goal is, or if you're a consultant, what your goal is for your client, right? So is it leads, sales? Do you want Facebook likes, or is it just brand awareness? I mean, or awareness of an event or cause. You could be working with a nonprofit or running a nonprofit. In those cases, you're not really getting leads and sales. Although I could argue that you're looking for donations, and that is your form of leads or sales, but that's a different conversation. But really, you need to decide what the goal is, because that sets up the entire funnel. In our prior webinars, we were talking about goal conversions and things like that. This all ties back into what you do in Google Analytics and how you track things on heat maps and all the other stuff that we've talked about before. Now, when you advertise, this is what you'll see when you can go to just facebook.com/ads, ADS, or /advertising, and set up your advertising account. These are the options, the basic options that you get. In later trainings, we'll talk about the Power Editor, which kind of takes you outside of this restricted interface. For the most part, what I focus on are two primary areas. I focus on website clicks and website conversions. I'll explain later why those two are the most effective for me and for my clients, and how those two types of advertising, when used in the Power Editor with some little tweaks and changes, also can drive other things like page likes and post engagements and so on and so forth. For example, you can look at an ad that's been running and you can see, Facebook kind of obscures some of the language that Facebook uses. Is not, your classic buy advertising, get clicks. They talk about post likes, page likes, other actions, which could be shares, and then, of course, the website clicks, which is what we're really after. And so when you set up your ads the right way, um, you can get not only clicks to the website, but likes to the page and shares and other things. So you don't have to go purely after the page likes. Um, for there's and to clarify there, a lot of my clients and a lot of the projects that we work on, we're not really trying to build up a fan page and with a bunch of likes on it, because that requires content and requires maintenance. Any likes that we get are kind of an afterthought. Really what we're after are those website clicks and ultimately after the conversion, so the leads. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you're advertising on Facebook or not. You do need to know something about your audience, so who you're after, their age, where they're located, if you're geographically focused, what their interests might be, books, Facebook groups, pages that they like or follow. So, are they following, Michael Jordan on his fan page, or Coca-Cola, or whatever. And the reason you need to know all those things with Facebook in particular, we're not going after keyword searches, right? And we can actually do better than what you can do in the classic Google AdWords space, where people are just typing in a search. Um, it can be argued in some cases that that's kind of the old way of advertising, although there's still plenty of traffic out there. Regardless, it's important to know, how old your average customer is going to be. Are they married? Are they single? Are they kids? I mean, are they kids? Do they have kids? What kind of car do they drive? Now, why would that be important to know what kind of car they drive? Well, you can actually target people on Facebook based on, those page likes and groups. And there are people that are fans of Mercedes, so to speak, or what have you. What do they read? What do they watch on TV? What movies do they watch or like? All that stuff is important. And then kind of the final one is who are the market leaders. So, if you're in the startup venture capital space, there's people that lead the field there. If you're in the real estate investing space, there's people like, Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and all those types of market leaders. You can target their fans. I'm sure some of you are aware of the UID scrapers and things like that, which we'll talk about later. But having all of that information and understanding who that target is will really help you drive down your cost of advertising and increase your conversions. If you're just getting started and you're not sure about these things, this is information that you can gather as you move along and improve your advertising and reduce the costs. So here's a screenshot from one of our campaigns where you can see kind of what's going on. These are timeline ads. So you see the click-through rates of 0.67 and 0.55. We'll talk a little bit about what good click-through rates are and how many clicks. You can see we've got a total of roughly 700 clicks on this campaign and about just under $800 spent. Now, in this case, it's like, what does this really do for us? What do we care about? Well, what I'm not showing you here are the conversions, so how much it's costing us to convert a lead. And I can tell you that I think it's for this campaign, we're converting leads somewhere between $10 and $15. And for this particular client, that is extremely inexpensive based on his other forms of advertising, such as direct mail and so forth. Richard says he's not seeing the screen. Richard, you might want to disconnect and reconnect. I think everybody else is seeing the screen. Okay. If everybody's seeing the screen, okay. If you're not seeing the screen, oh, there it is. It came back. Okay, cool. So, what's important here and what drives down your cost, not only on the sidebar ads, and the timeline ads, is really your click-through rate. So you can kind of see the relationship here. It's probably not my best example, but it is a good example that the click-through rate is 0.67 and the other one is 0.55, and the cost per click is about 4 cents cheaper. And that's for the lifetime of this ad, which I think is like 14 days or something like that. And so usually what happens is you're paying more per click when you start out, and as the click-through rates go up, the price drops. So in reality, the cost per click today is probably more like $1.50 rather than $2. And we're running it as optimized CPM. which you can see there on the far right. But what's important to note is that the click-through rate, right, the number of people see the ad versus the number of people that click the ad, is what drives the cost per click, or really your cost of advertising. I don't care if you're doing CPM or whatever your bid methodologies might be. The click-through rate is the primary thing that they're going to decide whether or not you're getting charged more or not. And that, I don't know if they just decided that that's the way they're going to do it, or if that's the industry standard or what, but that's also what Google does, right? Google's click-through rate is on AdWords is a significant part of the quality score and what determines your cost per click. That's why you could have two people bidding on the same thing and one's paying, 50% less than the other. It's purely based on that click-through rate. Because from their perspective, the click-through rate, the more clicks you're going to get, the more money you're going to spend, right? So they're kind of giving you the volume discount, so to speak. So to improve your click-through rate, what you need to do is work on your targeting, your ad copy, the images, and the call to action, right? So you could have various advertisements running. You can test something like what you see over here with the, conversion screenshot and see who clicks on that. The one in the bottom right has the Learn More button on it. And it's a completely different Facebook page. One is Lead Generation Workshop, the other one's Arizona Marketing Association. So not only does the ad matter, but the targeting. So the avatar, the person that sees the ad, there's going to be a direct correlation between who clicks on it based on who you're targeting. For some people, a picture of someone's face is going to work better than, like the analytical screenshot you see there. And for others, it won't work as well. You really do have to test and never assume that one is going to work better than the other. It's always going to be a correlation between the target group, the avatar, right, and the ad copy, so what the words are on the ad, and the image. And the job of the image and the ad copy is to get the click. So one of the mistakes that I myself have made and that others make is that they try to sell whatever they're selling on the ad. The ad's job is not to sell whatever it is that you have on your sales page or your opt-in page. The ad's job is to get the click, and to get a click that is as targeted as possible, right? So the ad needs to qualify and disqualify the person that's clicking, uh, you know, to the extent that you weren't able to segment out based on your targeting, if that makes sense. For your ads, so recently, Facebook told everyone that you only need one image size. So it's 1200 by 627. And what they do now for you is they resize the image according to whether it's mobile or desktop or a sidebar or timeline. So there's really only one image size now. It actually makes it easier for us. It's a little more expensive because now you have to buy higher quality images, right? But you only have to deal with one image size when you're dealing with Facebook ads. And let's face it, the image itself is probably the most important part of your ad in Facebook. And it's also the biggest pain, because if you're going to split test, that means you have to create, different images and other things. And I'll talk later about things that I've found to be successful as far as image ads go, and tools you can use to quickly create images. So here's kind of different versions. So the top area is you've got the old and the new, and these kind of different layouts, right? So these old versions of the desktop feed and the new ones now. In fact, they just announced another update yesterday that you're going to have these kind of full size timeline pages, and have more image centric posts and things like that on the fan pages. So regardless of the size of the ad and whether it's the sidebar or the mobile or the timeline, it's going to use that same image format. Some of you have probably seen the option to add a call to action. So you'll notice the difference between these two ads. There's one that has a Learn More button and one that doesn't. In this particular example, I forgot what website I got this from, but it's a Facebook um, news site, basically. They said that the call to action button actually decreased the number of clicks that they were getting. So you do need to split test and try one with or without. I think it's going to depend on what you're offering and who your target audience is. The other thing is the image might have a very big part to play in this whole thing. So, you know, if they use a different set of images with those same, two versions, one with a call to action, one without, but with different images, it might actually impact it. So you don't want to just say, okay, if I add the learn more button, it's going to convert better or worse. Uh, Everything that's connected matters, right? So for example, what they didn't do or test in this version is at the bottom where it says small business lifesaver, low 2.5% swipe rate, no hidden fees, free mobile, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't say click the button to learn more, or it doesn't have a call to action that correlates with that. Also, this is a pet peeve of mine, is when you have the same thing. So they have the just 2.25% on every swipe in the image, but they also have it in the text. I don't see that as being necessary given the fact that it's already in the image. So but each one of those elements you do need to test. Sometimes it's better to have less text rather than more. So the more you put in there, sometimes will decrease your click-through rates. And a lot of those different tweaks that you can do are items that you just need to test, and you'll gain knowledge and insight over time as you do Facebook advertising. So there's the learn more button if you didn't see that. So if you're going to create image ads, Photo Dune is a good place to get cheap images. Those are the same guys that have Theme Forest and stuff. You can get images for as little as $1. I think to get something that's about 1200 by 627, the size we discussed, it's going to cost about $3 if you want stock photography. One of my secret tricks these days is to use a screenshot of a YouTube video, and sometimes they will say, they'll deny the ad and say, hey, you can't put a fake video play button up there, but 9.5 times out of 10 they don't even notice. I personally use Snagit a lot to edit the images, but you can also use free tools like Pixlr. It's an online editing tool, and so you get something like this, where it looks like it's a video, and then I put a little header with some text on it, and so that looks like a YouTube video that has a headline built into it, right? It's designed to get your attention and to get clicks. And these types of ads tend to do really well, particularly if they click on this and when they get to the landing page, this same video is there, right? So you want to keep it congruent if possible. So I've got the headline there, and then you can see the little video YouTube play button icons on the bottom. I've had some decent success with that. I would use it conservatively because it does seem like they're doing some human reviews, and in some cases they'll deny it. In other cases, it's okay. Here's another version. It's a picture from Ron's real estate event. It's just the girls that check you in at the counter. You can see that I've put the little header up on top of that image, so it's just a regular picture. You have the 20% rule where you can't have more than 20% of the ad covered in text, but we just use this nice little, free seminar, come join us type thing at the top there. That's been really successful, versus just the plain picture. In many cases, that will perform better. And again, I do that with Snagit. You can do it with Pixlr as well. This one is, sidebar versus the timeline. So the sidebar, this one, the big yellow and black ugly thing, for the most part, I did not think would get approved. It did for one ad, it didn't get approved, and for another, it did. So, but the one that did get approved is performing rather well. These ugly ads back in the pay-per-click days always did really well. So I don't know how long they'll let us get away with this, or if that's something that you can do on an ongoing basis. But that really does stand out, and it works really well. Overall, from a performance perspective, the general consensus is on sidebars is 0.04% is the average click-through rate. If anything above that, up to the 1% mark, is considered outstanding. I don't know many people that'll get 1% click-through on the sidebar. On the timeline ads, you'll see click-through rates of 1, 2, 3, 4% and up. I like to see 1%, but you know what? The bottom line is if the CTR is lower, you're going to pay more, and it doesn't necessarily matter. Sure, you're going to want to improve that and try to get the click-through rates higher so that you have cheaper traffic and all that fun stuff. But what's the result? CTR does not equal sales, right? So if CTR really just means more clicks and cheaper traffic. But if you're getting a higher click-through rate and you're not getting more signups, leads, conversions, and sales, then what does it matter? Because remember, part of the ad's job is to qualify and disqualify the people that are clicking. So you might have something on the ad that says, $25 online evaluation or something that has a price put in there that is going to drop your click-through rate because people aren't going to want to pay for whatever it is that the ad has to offer in some cases, right? So, uh, CTR is one measure. The ultimate measure is the result. So again, this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, which is what's the goal? Is the goal to get cheap traffic, or is the goal to get higher conversions and quality leads, right? So ideally, you'd like to have all of those things. So when you're working on a Facebook ad campaign, and we'll talk about this next week, is you can start broad, so you can start kind of sloppy. So you're just going to set a relatively small budget, do the best you can at setting your target audience, put your ads up there and see what happens, and then dig into the reporting tools and figure out who's clicking. So for example, you might find that your highest click-through rate is from men between the age of 45 and 60. So, what you can do is run a report, find out who's converting, go back, change your ads, narrow it down to a specific group of people, and then you have a high CTR that's getting cheap traffic and quality leads and all those things at the same time, right? So it's a process. You don't just throw up an ad and then one day and then leave it there and then you're, good to go and let it run forever. That's not typically the case. Even in the Google AdWords space, right? It's a constant battle of tuning and tweaking. Next week we're going to talk about unpublished posts. Okay, this is something that not a lot of people do, and it's extremely powerful. That's how when you combine unpublished posts with various Facebook page creation methods, you can also get a whole bunch of likes and signups or leads at the same time. So, if you're doing this for a client or you're launching a new business, but really, you're more interested in getting leads and sales and you don't really care about page likes, well, you can get both, right? So we'll talk about that next week. We'll also talk about conversion tracking. So you want to know, uh, first of all, you want to run a bunch of ads in separate segments. So I like to separate my sidebar from my timeline, and then I also like to separate my target groups as well. We'll also talk about creating custom audiences next week, and then using all of those things in combination to optimize your advertising. And then landing page and ad congruency. You'll see a distinct difference when you kind of give people the same look and feel from an ad to a landing page. So if they match each other, in some cases, it does depend on your market and your target audience and your product and other things. But many times it's worth testing that congruency. So in other words, making sure that the same colors or same people, or if you're going to have a video like I showed you, you have the YouTube video screenshot on your ad and also have that same YouTube video on the landing page so that they have that same experience when they go from one to the next. So just to go back over this real quick before I move on to kind of closing statements here. The way that you get your cheap traffic and the way you get higher conversions, the way you get quality leads is not by just throwing something up and leaving it there. It's by following a process. It's by following steps. And so as we go through this 4-part series, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the methodology that I use and that works for me. And you're going to walk away with a methodology that you can copy and use, because if you just go in there and start quote unquote playing with it, you're probably going to be losing money. And that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. You could look at it as an investment in learning. But really, you want to have a system that you can follow and that will get you results. Um, let's see. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I do have an upcoming lead generation workshop in Phoenix. So if you want to, that's next Monday, so it's coming real soon. If you want to, if you're in Phoenix and you can make it, you can go to morecustomersfaster.com/March workshop. Or next month we'll be in San Diego, and the registration will open for that on March 21st. So once we wrap up this upcoming workshop. And in that workshop, what happens is we actually go through all of this stuff. We set up a landing page and tracking and ads and all that sort of thing. And it's a small group environment, usually 10 to 15 people, and everybody leaves with a working funnel and new leads. That's all I have for today. I didn't want to go too deep because I wanted to kind of set the stage as we went further along, and also wanted to give you a chance to ask questions. So I asked the questions of those on the webinar today, who was advertising, whether you're advertising for yourself or you're advertising for a customer. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. We've done everything from promoted posts to clicks to websites and squeeze pages and that sort of thing. And be glad to take any questions that you have right now. And if you don't, that's fine too. We can wrap up the webinar and I can get working on converting it. Any questions from you, Richard, Ron, Deborah, Dan, Craig? There's a bunch of people on here today. That's awesome. Waldo, anyone? Questions about ads? Richard says, you mentioned click to website versus page likes. Yes, I did mention that. But that's not a question, Richard. That's a statement. Yeah, and you guys might be formulating your questions, so I'll give you a minute here to type them into the box, and we'll wait and answer those. We can go back if we need to one of the slides. No questions. Waldo says, appreciate your dedication. No problem, Waldo. I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out. Richard says that you stated that you prefer clicks to the website and conversions. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Yes, I can. And then Robert says, is it better to send your clicks to a website or a landing page? Are you asking, Robert, if it's better to send clicks to the website versus a landing page, or a website / landing page versus a Facebook page? My preference is to send the clicks to a landing page that oftentimes might be part of a website. In other cases, it might be like a lead page or something like that. But you have to ask yourself the question that we discussed at the beginning of the webinar, which is, what is the goal, right? So before you start any campaign, you need to just simply ask yourself the question, what do I want the most, right? Do I want leads? Do I want sales? Do I want brand awareness? Do I want likes? Do I want all of those things? And what are you going to do to get those? Richard says, do you talk more about clicks and to a website or conversion? So if you look at some of the past webinars that we've done in our YouTube channel or in the members archive, you'll see where I talk about conversions and conversion tracking with Google Analytics. My preference and my approach is always to drive subscriptions, so email addresses, phone numbers, signups, generate leads, and then get likes as a secondary benefit. For the most part, most of the clients that I'm working with and the projects I'm working on are not Fortune 500 companies who measure big things in huge arbitrary branding campaigns, right? So the goal for all of these clients is, hey, let's run a Facebook campaign and see if we can generate leads and see if those leads are converting into sales and how much it costs us to do that. So I've got some clients who, if they generate a lead for $100, a quality lead with a phone number and an address and stuff like that, that's a good deal for them. And they know that for every 10 leads that they get, that they'll get one sale. And so a lot of the answering that question about conversion tracking and things like that is going to be based on knowing what a client is worth to you. And sometimes that takes a little time to figure that out. Ron asked about budgets. What do you kick it off with? It's going to depend, Ron, on the target audience, how big the audience is. I like to run a campaign started off with a $10 a day budget, and my preference is to do optimized CPM with a goal of getting clicks. And I'll typically set the click price at $5, knowing that it'll be something lower than that. So even if you set the CPM click price to $5 and it's a sidebar ad, your clicks are going to be really cheap, like, 20 cents or something in many cases. Um, the budget is oftentimes set by your client or based upon what you think you can get a sale for, right? So if you're selling a product that's going to generate $500 in profit, would you be willing to spend $250 or $300 in advertising to make that sale? Let's see. Richard says squeeze page versus a landing page. Well, those are kind of one and the same, right? So, the landing page can be a squeeze page. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with like local customers, which maybe you are, the landing page is also a squeeze. In other words, it has a name and email address option, but we'll typically put a trackable phone number on there as well, because when you're dealing with local markets, a lot of people just want to be able to call somebody and get help right away over the phone, right? Um, Dan asks, have you ever had a problem with clicks that you know are not from multiple IP addresses that are not in your target area? Oh, maybe you're referring to some of the scuttlebutt out there regarding, fake clicks and so on and so forth. Um, that's not even something that I look at or care about. What I look at is how much money did I spend and what was the result. I think a lot of the folks that were worried about, click fraud and all that sort of thing were, they were getting likes. They were going out and buying likes. And so they're getting all these likes from India or some other place. For the most part, that's not an issue. And if you think you have an issue, you can actually contact Facebook and their advertising group and let them know, and they'll help you out and even maybe give you ad credit. So Robert says he's looking to promote leads for a flooring store. Yeah, so for the most part, I don't know if you know this, Robert, but you can target people based on their home values, some of their extended data. The other thing you can do is you can target people based on if they're married with children and how old those children are. And so from that data, you can kind of come to some assumptions in terms of where they're at in their life, right? So who's likely to buy new flooring? Probably somebody who has a house, and you can get that data from your client, or if you are the client, if you're generating leads for your flooring store. I would try a couple different things. I would try giving you know, the free guide approach, which is, how to shop for the best prices on flooring, or how to avoid, the 10 mistakes in tile installation, whatever. The other one I would try is the straight up offer claim coupon, which you'll see down here. Let me click over to the next slide because it's in there. This thing at the bottom where it says offer claims. So you could give them an offer, not too different than what you see in like a Groupon or why my brain's going blank. The little coupon sheets that come in your mail. One of you guys will probably remember, but you basically put some sort of offer out there. It's 10% off. It's free installation on anything over $500. Whatever the offer is, put some offer claims out there. Put them in front of your target audience. Probably going to be women, I'm guessing, and then see what converts. Richard asks, do you collect emails on Facebook or off Facebook? I usually collect them off of Facebook. In other words, the landing page is external to Facebook. Dan says his ads are very, very targeted to a website that he uses Google Analytics to track the source IP addresses. Well, Google Analytics doesn't always give you 100% accurate data. I'd have to look at your specific scenario to know for sure what you're talking about, Dan. Um, but if you have concerns about, paying for traffic that you shouldn't be paying for, I would just contact Facebook directly and tell them, hey, why am I seeing this? They'll help you. Um, let's see. Do you bid above the suggested bids? Yes, Waldo, I always bid above the suggested bids. And the reason I do that is because I want to, especially early on, because I want to get as much traffic as soon as possible, and then I'll get my bid price down based on optimizing my advertising, not by setting my advertising price low. If you set your ad price too low, your bid's too low, then what's going to happen is you're not going to get the best traffic. You're going to get shunned, right? You're welcome for the webinar, Dan. Yeah, that's right, Valpak. That's Jim and Waldo. That's what I was talking about, Valpak. Yeah, so the offer claim thing is not too different than a Valpak or a Groupon, right? So you might try that if you're doing a local business thing and flooring, for example. I know that you can do price per square foot installation and various other things that you can do as offers. Um, Try those. The other thing that we're going to talk about in later trainings is also Facebook retargeting and retargeting in general. So when you're buying traffic and sending people to your flooring landing page with a coupon on it or something, or to a squeeze page where you're trying to get them to sign up for something, it's a really good idea to put in retargeting and remarketing, because now you can get back in front of that client who you've just paid to send to your squeeze page or to your website for a fraction of the price it cost you originally. So let's just assume that you sent 100 people to your website and it cost you $1 per click. You just spent $100 to get 100 people to look at what you have. Wouldn't it be worth it to spend another, 10 cents or something to get back in front of that person a couple more times with retargeting? Because retargeting is cheap, and that's really a great way to recapture that same traffic. Is my account set up with the new Facebook Ad Manager yet? Asked Richard. Yes. I think they were implementing those changes yesterday, because yesterday I was placing some ads and it seemed like nothing was running, and then all of a sudden today they're running, and I've got this new Ad Manager layout, which I wrote an article about it on my personal blog um, the other day, that whole new Ad Manager thing. Any other questions? So Richard says his also is using the new Ad Manager. Cool. I think we covered them all. If I didn't answer your question appropriately and you wanted to get clarity on something, you're welcome to ask again. Otherwise, I'll end this and we'll post the recording to the member archive and to the YouTube channel for your reference. Simultaneously, as a side note, I'm working on a little checklist sheet that you'll be able to get as a PDF to kind of coincide with this training. So if you think that would be of use to you, let me know right now so I can either avoid doing that or move forward with it. Yes, no? Would you like the checklist? Yes. Okay, I'm getting yeses. Okay, perfect. Waldo says it would be very helpful. Awesome. Ron says loves checklists. So one final thing, if you like, I don't know, how many of you have been on one of the other ones I've done on analytics so far? This is the first one on Facebook. Anyone here been on the prior webinars or caught the recordings? Richard says yes. Okay, cool. If you like these so far and want to, Ron says heat maps. Dan says, do you have an email address where you can send questions? I don't, because I just don't have the setup for that just yet. You know what I will do, Dan, is we're in the process of building a members area, and we'll probably set up a forum in there, and you'll be able to ask questions there. and hopefully that'll help you. If you have questions right now, I can answer those, but via email is kind of tough for me because outside of what you're seeing right here, I have quite a lot on my plate. Um, so if you got something out of this webinar or the past webinars that you've been on, and you want to leave a little testimonial in the chat box here that I could use to when I invite people to the other webinars, I'd appreciate that. You can put something in here like, this webinar stinks. No, that wouldn't be a testimonial, would it? You have to put something positive in there in order for me to use it. Waldo wants to know, how much would you go over the suggested bids? I usually go over by quite a lot. So if they're saying 75 cents, I'll put $1.50. So, maybe 100%, double whatever their highest suggested bid is. All right, cool. Well, thank you for your time. I think that's the end of that. That's the end of the questions. Appreciate the feedback. Appreciate your comments, and appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. It's every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. And so you are on this webinar now. That means that you're automatically invited to the next one. And because it's set up as a series in GoToWebinar, so it should just send you a new invite reminder. I will also send out email reminders. And Dan says he's going to be here for all 3 of the Facebook webinars. So cool. All 3 more, I guess 4 total. So, all right. Well, that's it for today. We'll talk to you guys next week. Appreciate you spending the time, and look forward to seeing you Thursday.